Hello out there in Training Tuesday land, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Heidi Reese, and I am the Training Programs Manager, and all of us here at Dayton Superior hope that you're enjoying these Training Tuesdays. We conduct every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern. If there's anything that you would like to have during these Training Tuesdays for the future, please contact me at training@daytonsuperior.com. So I'm super excited today. Mr. Chuck is out and about doing his training dog and pony show. I don't know what you call it. He's in California. So hi, Mr. Chuck. But I have a special guest here, Miss Holly Juergens, who's going to talk to us today about type 1L for tilt up. But first, before we get started, I do want to remind everyone that this presentation is intended for training purposes only. So any kind of technical specification, safety data sheets, please refer to daytonsuperior.com to get that on the products that we might mention. So who the heck is Dayton Superior? We are the leading provider of engineered solutions for the concrete construction industry. I say that every time. So what does that really mean? We provide you with accessories, whether it's bar supports, bridge deck, precast splicing, tilt up, like we're going to talk about today, along with chemicals. Chemicals in the form of liquids, powders, epoxies, repair and restoration, as well as forming, which is adaptable and strong, and many of them work together. And we have the forming and shoring solutions. You're seeing all that stuff flying on your screen right now, and those are all the brands that we have available within all the areas that I mentioned. So today, as I said, we've got Miss Holly here to talk about type 1L and tilt-up chemicals. And roughly, we're going to talk the utilization of those effects that type 1L may have on tilt-up jobs and the chemicals that are used with them. A little bit about Holly is that she has been with Dayton Superior for over 10 years. 10 years, really? Oh, wow. You're not, honey. You're smart. She's currently serving as our Director of Product Engineering for the Chemical Division. She has extensive experience spanning in research and development, manufacturing, and product management. She's also a chemical engineer, and as that, she possesses deep insights into chemical design and application, particularly in the job site environments. Her MBA complements her technical expertise, of course, and that enables a comprehensive approach to product management, including the support in formula composition, DOT, certification queries, you name it, for chemicals. Additionally, she holds a 6 Sigma green belt. I feel like I should karate chop you.
Right. I do want to get my black belt.
And actively participates in various NetPep committees. And back to the other one, I'm a green belt too, so we're okay. We can fight each other.
So we're on equal playing field.
But we'll fight each other efficiently, right?
Knock 'em, sock 'em, robots.
Knock 'em, sock 'em. Without further ado, Holly, teach us some more information on type 1L.
Alrighty, thank you, Heidi. So we're going to go over type 1L cement very quickly, just as a brief refresher before we get into our main topic. So if you'd like to learn more about it in depth, we do have a previous Intro to Type 1L Training Tuesday that can be found under the Chemical Training webinar videos on our website under Related Trainings. So real quick, what is PLC or type 1L cement? So it is a blended hydraulic cement that has a higher content of limestone, and it's actually specified through ASTM C595, which might be a new term. The types of cements we're used to working with in the past, such as type 1-2, type 3, OPC, are classified as just Portland cement and are actually specified under ASTM C150. So not only do we have a different category for PLC, but a whole different specification as well. So as I mentioned, PLC is considered a blended cement, and it's not the only blended cement out there. So regular Portland cement, as specified under that ASTM C150, can actually have up to 5% of the clinker replaced with an SCM, or a supplementary cementitious material that's going to exhibit similar cementitious properties. So once we get past that 5% and into a range up to 15%, we're looking at what's called these blended cements. So this includes your type 1L, type 1S, type 1P, and type 1T. And they're defined by the clinker replacement of either limestone, slag, pozzolans, or a combination called a ternary blend. So a typical replacement range for PLC in our industry right now is about 8 to 15%. And that's an important number to remember for later.
Okay, write that down.
So when it was first introduced, and we talked about this in our previous training Tuesday, there's a lot of buzz around the issues in the field with PLC. So these issues are what led to the topic we're going to be discussing today. So to start, we have less bleed water. This is one of the most common complaints coming from the field when using type 1L. And the problem with this less bleed water is that it's going to create issues during the finishing process, such as cracks or tears, especially if that finishing happens too slowly or too late. Next, we've got low early strength gain. So this one tends to go both ways. Some see it, some don't. Low early strength gain can affect timing for form removal, post-tensioning, and placing those saw cut joints. Lastly, we have a variable limestone level, like we said before. It can be anywhere from 5 to 8 to 15%. And if that number isn't communicated, or if it ranges on the same job site, you're getting product from a manufacturer of these cements and they're not giving you the same percentage each time, it can cause confusion and that poor consistency, especially when it comes to the finishing and the timing of your job. So these observations have led to a variety of quote unquote new solutions, all of which I'm sure you've heard of. They include evaporation retarders, finishing aids, densifiers, and curing compounds. So I hate to burst anyone's bubble, but these items have always existed. Type 1L is simply bringing them more attention as they become an integral part of our concrete jobs. So these are considered these solutions to those issues that we just went over. And like I said, they've always existed. They just have a lot more attention on them right now because of that Type 1L. A phrase that is becoming more and more common because of this in our marketing language today is designed for Type 1L. I wouldn't necessarily say this is true because, as we mentioned, these products have always been around. For example, evaporation retarders have always been suggested for and used on job sites where those conditions are rough, including, as you can see, hot temperatures. If you have low humidity, high winds, and low water to cement ratio mixes, they're going to help retain bleed water on PLC jobs where bleed water may be slow to rise or in small quantities, as some of our people are seeing out in the field. But those evaporation retarders have always been used in conditions like this. Same with finishing aids. They're not exactly new. They've been used to aid in the finishing process when conditions are seen like those on the left. They also increase cream to ease trowel work, and they aid in the application of shake-on hardeners. Portland limestone cement just makes these aids more of a need than an option in most cases. A few more products that are more commonly seen as designed for Type 1L are densifiers. So regardless of their chemistry, whether you're using lithium, sodium, or maybe a hybrid mix of the two, it doesn't matter. And this is because the silicate in these densifiers reacts with the calcium hydroxide or the free lime. And adding PLC does not increase this free lime. This free lime is not the same as limestone. So there isn't anything extra that's being added to react with to change how your densifier is reacting with your concrete. It also does not affect the porosity. So porosity is not affected by that addition of limestone until you start getting to a loading of 25% or more. And as I mentioned, the industry standard is between 8 and 15 right now. So the pores are not larger nor smaller than regular OPC. And so using a lithium with smaller molecules or a sodium with larger molecules, it's not going to matter because the pore size isn't changing. Lastly, we have cures. So curing compounds do not interact with concrete as they are actually formulated to form a film regardless of the concrete contents. So if you see companies marketing items specifically designed for use with Type 1L, I just want you to stop and think before you spend any extra money for something that might just be a sales or a marketing tactic, that nothing in this is actually going to change how you're utilizing these products or how you're formulating them, because we're not changing the inherent parts of the concrete that are reacting with our products. All right, so now that we've heard all about the different solutions out there for making these PLC jobs go smoother, you might be asking yourself, well, what in the world do I do now? What if I want to give some of these a try? How do I go about it in a way that makes sense for my tilt job? After all, tilt is something that depends very heavily on timing and on your processes. And it's a lot to incorporate. So you're in luck because we're about to go over it. So the first step after your forming is in place is obviously pouring your concrete into those forms. So you're going to continue with screeding your surface to create a flat, smooth surface. And after that screen is complete, you're going to apply your evaporation retarder. So it's important to note that you're just going to spray that retarder on the surface. You're not working it into the surface, as it's going to change the water to cement ratio if you work it in. So this is going to be a product that traps in your bleed water. You're just spraying it on the surface. After that evaporation retarder goes down as the first item that you'll put down, you're going to let that evaporation retarder evaporate. And the timing of this will also depend on your job site conditions. So it might happen faster or slower depending on where you're working. Then you're going to float the surface to level out any high or low spots. That's when the bleed water will start to show on your surface. So if you have an extended time between floating and finishing, you can actually spray another layer of evaporation retarder down at this point to keep that bleed water there until you can come back and finish. Otherwise, you're going to let the bleed water evaporate. And once that bleed water is gone, you're going to start applying your finishing aid. All right. So now you're going to use that finishing aid to finish your concrete surface. This one, you're actually going to work into the concrete to create that creamy surface that allows for an easy and smooth finishing. Once that is worked in, you finish your surface. Immediately once you're done with finishing, you're going to apply your densifier. So you're going to spray your lithium silicate or sodium silicate or a lithium sodium silicate hybrid on your slab. Note that this does not include siliconate. So if you are using a siliconate-based densifier, such as like our SureHard densifier J17, this is going to be applied after you've lifted and shortly before turning over your project. So this is after everything is done, you'll apply a siliconate. Otherwise, you're applying your silicates right now. So you're going to let your densifier dry before you start curing your slab. And again, timing will vary based on those job site conditions as to how fast your densifier dries. It could be rather quick, it could be rather slow, it all just depends. As you go to cure your concrete, you have a choice to use a curing compound or a bond breaker. So there are plenty of options out there, from water-based to solvent-based. If you're going to use a curing compound that's water-based, please ensure that you're putting down a water-based bond breaker on top. Same with if you're using a solvent-based cure and seal, you're going to put a solvent-based bond breaker on top. So you're going to apply your desired cure coat, whether that's a curing compound or a bond breaker, to your surface. If you use a resin or wax curing compound, it will need to dissipate or be removed. So if you need to remove that before putting down your bond breaker, you want to make sure that your surface is nice and clean and that you don't have anything to interrupt with that bond breaker. If you choose to use a bond breaker, right, we still have that bond breaker cure coat on our surface. So you're actually going to be able to come back and just apply those bond breaker coats on top of your cure coat. So now that you've got your bond breaker and your cure on there, you're ready for what we would consider to be your next step. So now it's time to pour your tilt panel. You've got your bond breaker, you've got your new forms, your rebar, your accessories, etc. Everything's in place. And now it's time to pour. So this is a really, really brief and quick look at just kind of how you're applying all of these different tools, from evaporation retarders to finishing aids, to densifiers, to different curing options, whether it's a curing compound specifically or a bond breaker, and where all of those fit into your tilt pour. So you're starting with your evaporation retarder to keep in that bleed water. Then you can follow up and use a finishing aid during your finishing process. Once that finishing process is complete, you're immediately going to apply a lithium sodium silicate or a hybrid of the two down as your densifier. Let that densifier dry. You're applying your cure coat, whether it's a curing compound or bond breaker. Remove if you're using a curing compound, or dissipate. If you're using a bond breaker as your cure coat, you come back and you can just put that bond breaker down on top of it. So you're welcome to try using any of these in that order. You can also use some of them, not all of them. It's totally up to you and the issues that you're having on your job site. There are a lot of options to choose from. So when it comes to finding the right tools for your job in the form of chemicals, a lot of these chemicals have found success in the industry over the years, and they're now proving to be helpful when it comes to these challenges presented by PLC. So if you're interested in learning more about these products and how to use them, when to apply them, etc., Heidi's going to share some of our amazing resources for you.
One of which is just presented to you. Holly is definitely a resource. We also have someone on Training Tuesday right now that is a resource, Mr. Albright. So you're welcome there, Chris. His phone number should be presented in just a moment. But before I get going with the resources, if there's any other questions, please feel free to put that into the chat question answer or chat area of the Zoom, and we can get that going for you. We did have one comment that was made, and I think it's important to kind of show. We told them, let's watch and we can see if that answers. But, everyone's saying that type 1L is used all over the place, and they want to kind of know why. How long has type 1L been around? It's been around a while, right? Long time?
So type 1L was actually started, I think, back in like the 60s in Europe. And all of this is also in our Intro to Type 1L Training Tuesday on our website. Like I said, if you go under the Training Tuesday landing page, you'll find a chemical section. And under the chemical section, there's a section called Related Trainings. So the intro is under there. But
Look at you actually did look at my stuff.
I do look at your stuff.
Yeah, I was like, she just did my little show there.
Yeah. So that was introduced as a way to reduce our carbon footprint. So it goes into detail in that Training Tuesday, but basically what it's doing is it's replacing the part of the cement that's really driving carbon production and emissions. So we're trying to back that off. So it is a huge environmental push. And at this point in time, after trying to obtain type 1,2 cement just for some research purposes, I'm telling you, it is not available anymore.
Yeah,
like
it seems that
type 1L is pretty much the only thing that you can find out there. I was trying to find 2 bags of type 1,2 cement from anybody, and it was difficult for sure to even get to. So if you're working on a job site right now, very likely you're using that type 1L cement. So try to keep an eye out to see, what kind of issues you might be having, if you can benefit from something like a finishing aid or densifier in this situation. We are currently performing research to see exactly how these are interacting within the concrete in terms of what strength might be doing, abrasion resistance, to see if there's any additional benefits besides just going through and finishing your concrete slab. So we will be putting out more information about that once we get those testing results back.
Awesome. Thank you, Holly. So I hope that answered your question. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Sam. All right. Well, continuing on, if you have a question, please feel free to put that in there. Your resources. So obviously we have a whole website full of resources just for you. It's not just people, although those are the important ones of Dayton Superior, but we have product and system landing pages. You see the product page right there for Aquafilm Concentrate J74. In addition, we have various guide documents. The one on the screen here is for evaporation retardant, since we're talking about that. But there's a lot of different guides to the appropriate product pages. So you'll find that everything, and let me hit the back button here. When you can't see it, but once you click into here, into the actual name of the product, on the left-hand side, you'll see a lot of information that will be on those product pages, such as the guide document, such as any handbooks, technical data sheets, safety data sheets that are appropriate for that product. On the screen there, you see examples of the 3 just mentioned. In addition, if it is a third-party mass certified green, where we've tested from a third party to get that compliance, that will be shown there as well. What if you have specification needs? You can do that even without our product. So if it's a competitor product and you need specification assistance, there's a form on the website that you can fill out, and one of our what are they? TSRs can get that back to you. So TSR means technical service representative, and they can provide that information just for you.
There's also another resource that we're working on currently that are considered one-page flyers. So they are double-sided, and we have a very large product portfolio, and sometimes it can be confusing for people on how to choose the right Dayton product for your job. So one of the things that we're working on is not only putting together a one-pager that's going to tell you the difference between all the different products in a specific category, but on the backside, it answers one of the most asked for questions, which is what product of yours compares to a product of your competitor. So you can kind of see that cross-reference by product category in a nice blown up version compared to our minuscule font version on the website. But it's a one pager. You can print it out. I keep them at my desk. They're great for whether you're an internal Dayton person or if you're a customer. They're available publicly on the website, and they'll be on the left-hand side with all of those other documents that Heidi mentioned.
That's right. Isn't that one that I kind of worked for you yesterday?
Yeah.
That's awesome. See how everything ties
You're my
together?
PDF creator.
In addition, we also have resources from third parties, such as the American Concrete Institute, the ACI, that we've referenced. What you're looking at here is going to ACI and doing a search for type 1L cement, and there's all kinds of material. I was reading them yesterday. I'm not a chemist, but it's pretty interesting out there what they have available.
There's a lot of information out there.
Mm-hmm. And then when I started the conversation, I was talking about Chris Albright and Holly, and Nathan's on the phone as well. So a lot of our technical service and our product managers, our director, I don't even think I said your title, hon, is director of product engineering for the chemical division. But all of these names, and as well as your Dayton Superior rep or your forming representative, can be found here. Just one click, you can go to contact us, and you have two different maps to choose from. Dayton Superior, you can go by the state that you're in, and you can find the resource with email addresses as well as phone numbers. And then here you go. Here's some pictures for you. So we have a dedicated tech services line there with the number, technical sales team, the TSRs I was referring to, field support. It really is real-time problem solving. I think it's great. The custom training. So with Training Tuesdays, we give you little blips. We saw it in the questions. You know, we have a type 1L that Holly did back in, I want to say March. And
I don't know, time flies when you're having fun.
And with that, you know, you learn a little bit, and we geared it more towards tilt because, as I'm about to show you, she is going to be at the Tilt Up show, the TCA show. We're going to be at booth 313 out in Phoenix, October 9th through 11th. And specifically, Holly is going to be providing a tilt up chemicals and their usage with type 1L cement. And that presentation will be on October 11th from 11:30 to 12:30 their time, Mountain Standard Time. And you can sign up if you're going to be out there in the TCA show, as well as come to see us in booth 313.
And I did not get to pick my time, so I apologize that it's over lunchtime.
So I want all you guys to bring in food, so her
Bring a
stomach
snack.
out. But no, I think it's important, you know, all of these trainings, back to what I was saying, all these trainings, we do short enticement trainings, but if there's something that you need more of, or maybe you're like, you know what, this is great, but I need tilt up chemicals, you can then go to either what Holly was referencing on our pages with the resources and see if there's something there, or contact me at training@daytonsuperior.com, and we can do something that's customized, whether it's a lunch and learn or it is through coming to your area and talking to you, like Chuck is doing right now in California. Okay.
We have another question.
So another question, yeah. Okay, so from earlier, I have noticed a difference in bleed water and lower early strength gain. And our technicians have had to adjust their methods to avoid cracks in preparing grout cubes. What ASTM ASHTO methods address the shift in cement?
All right. So the actual specification for the different types of cement, as you mentioned, for regular Portland cement, it was ASTM C150. For the new limestone cement, it's C595. And that's just the specification for the cement. You'd have to really dig into it. ASTMs are literally the worst things ever to have to read, but they provide a lot of good information. Just don't read it before bed at night unless you really want to fall asleep quick. So what we're doing right now, as I mentioned, is some of this research that's driving this speech that I'm going to be giving at the TCA show. And what that's doing is we're looking at some of these different ASTM methods to see, does utilizing some of these products help, whether it's forming a grout cube, whether it's looking at different abrasion resistance to your surface. So really looking to see what these products are doing below the surface, if anything, to help. So in terms of that, a lot of these are something that you're going to have to just kind of play around with and see for now until ASTM gets anything that, no pun intended, that's concrete out there. So if you go to any of these conferences or conventions throughout the year, everyone is very heavily working towards making sure specifications are up to date now that type 1L is so prevalent and pretty much the only thing available. I will say that utilizing certain methods found in the ACI guides for hot weather curing, cold weather curing, those can be applicable for other things. So generally, if you're looking at like the hot weather curing guide, you're going to see suggestions such as using finishing aids and evaporation retarders. And so that ACI, I think it's ACI 305, is going to be a really good resource to look at, and applying those from hot weather to using type 1L. It ends up being very similar because of the bleed water issue. So until we can get some further research completed, which should hopefully be by the end of this month, we don't have anything exact, but that ACI recommendation for hot weather concrete is a great one to look at in that instance.
Awesome. So while you guys are putting the rest of your questions in, we just have a short amount of time left. I just want to remind you that all of these webinars are recorded, and we do put them, as Holly mentioned earlier, out on the website. It is on Dayton Superior's YouTube channel, as well as daytonsuperior.com. Just search Training Tuesday. You'll find a couple links out there to what you need. There's a main webpage that Holly was referring to that gives you the latest and greatest, usually top 4 that have been done. So that'll be posted out there a little after 4 o'clock today with this particular presentation. And then you can get to all of the various ones by subject that you want to see if you scroll all the way to the bottom. Is there any other questions out there? Good talks, guys.
And if you have other questions, like she said, never hesitate to reach out to us. We are actively trying to figure out the best way to solve some of these common issues and complaints that the field is seeing, since this is kind of our new norm. So we're adjusting as the industry is adjusting and trying to figure out, the best way to go about things, whether it's here's different chemical products you can use, here's different processes you can try, all of those different things.
All right. Well, I don't see any questions. So Holly, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
She thumbs up, guys. So she's saying you're very welcome, as she said. All right, then I'll talk to you guys next week. We're going to be dealing with residential topcast. So be sure to sign up for that. And I will see you guys next Tuesday. Bye now.